mentioned tonight, I'd like to just talk about winter wildlife and how they survive. So there's different strategies, right? We all know some migrate, some hibernate, some go into dormancy. So I just wanted to take a look at that and just enjoy the beauty of winter, as well as learning about these amazing adaptations that these animals have. So winter has two big problems, right? We have less food to eat. Wildlife has less food, and it can be intensely cold, right? Very extreme conditions. So how do they manage? Did the slide change? Okay. Yeah. So some of the strategies, and these are not all of them, this is just some basic overview, but some of those strategies, they get out of town, right? They're just like our fair weather friends that head to Florida and Arizona, and they just get out of town. They migrate. So like monarch butterflies or birds, even some insects will do that. And of course, in bats. And some are true hibernators, and that means their physiology changes, their heart rate changes, their temperature decreases, their breathing rate decreases. So other things are animals like bison. They don't hide, they just have to adapt. They don't migrate here, and they might migrate in other places traditionally, but they stay active year round, and they don't really move from their traditional areas. And then some are semi-active. So they may take a break when there's a really bad storm and their conditions are really harsh. So they just hunker down and shelter someplace. Bear with me. So migration. So we all know how many different birds that migrate. And I think that's one of the joys I have, is seeing some of the actual migrants starting to come back. So I see my first turkey vulture for the season. So some of these animals, they just can't adapt the food. They can't find the food they need. Turkey vultures can't find the carcasses, or there's animals that feed on birds that feed on insects. There's just the food's not available. They might be able to adapt to the winter conditions, but they just can't find the food that they need to require to help them maintain their energy. So they have to migrate, like the turkey vulture. So they'll head south. Some will go a short distance. Some will go all the way down into South America. So the migration path and distances can vary. So some will head south from us. And then there's others like the short-eared owl, which actually migrate and stay here in Iowa for the winter. Some of them do. So there's a population. So these owls are coming from the northern states and Canada, and they need lesser severe conditions. And believe it or not, Iowa's conditions are less severe from where they come from. So as long as it doesn't have really extensive period of time where the snow is covering and they can't find their food, they'll stay here for the winter. So I think about Neal Smith in this tract of 6,000 acres of conserved land, and how beneficial it is for these wildlife, because where else could they go? So not only is the wildlife benefiting, but the people that come out to see, and the joy of seeing these beautiful owls. So this year we've had, I don't know, ranging several sightings at once, but last year we had a population of 15, and the population fluctuates. But thank goodness for Neal Smith National Wildlife Refuge preserving this prairie habitat, because these birds need open spaces. They need grassland. So without grasslands, they wouldn't survive. And the short-eared owl is actually a state endangered bird. So it is something that we're fortunate to have here on the refuge. And what they love to do is perch on our signs. So people will drive around the wildlife drive during late afternoon and look for the owls as they're perched on the signs. They're also very elegant flight pattern. So they just a very elegant bird, a very interesting bird. And if you do have the time and you're nearby, if you can come out in the evening, you still may be getting a glimpse. Don't come out on the night my husband comes out, because for sure you're not going to be able to see any birds, because he just doesn't have any luck. And by the way, some of these, this was one of our photo contest winners. I think this was best
Nancy,
in show for the Friends,
Nancy,
wasn't it, Joan?
Your slides aren't changed. At least, is everybody seeing the different slides? I'm only for some reason seeing one, but.
Wildlife strategies for winter survival.
Yeah. Are you still on that? Are you still on that first slide?
This is the second slide, actually.
Or second slide. I didn't
Okay.
know. I thought maybe it was
No,
me.
thanks for letting me know, Joan. Let me see. Let me try it again. Great turkey
There we-
vulture,
Yeah.
There.
short-eared owl.
Yeah.
You saw this one already?
No.
Nope.
So
Okay.
it was stuck before, it was stuck on that second slide with the like migrate. hibernate. It was
Okay,
stuck on
okay,
that.
so we're in a good spot now. All right, so anyway, this is the short-eared owl, a stunning photo, and this is actually best to show for the Friends photo contest for 2021. So beautiful, stunning photo. So I encourage you to come out and see those short-eared owls if you have the time. They may, we're not sure, but they may nest on the refuge, but not in great numbers. So there's indication that they've been seen during the breeding months. So they may nest on the refuge, but we haven't confirmed that. So just some really stunning photos. This one is actually a photo that Joan took, and this owl was sitting right on along the main road along the main entrance to the refuge. So just a gorgeous bird. And this is another northern migrant. This is a rough-legged hawk, and they actually come down from the tundra. They live up in the north, and this is once again their vacation in warm weather in Iowa. And they're called rough-legged hawks because they actually have feathers that go down their legs to help them to deal with the cold winter extreme temperatures. So, and we have a good population of these this year. Sometimes there's only a few, sometimes you don't see any, but once again, open landscape type animals. So I've been seeing almost every morning I come in one hunting around the Refuge Visitor Center, and they will kite, meaning they'll face into the wind and just kind of stabilize and stay in one spot, and then they'll come down and they'll feed mostly on animals, rodents. So rough-legged hawk. And this is a tiny little sparrow, and this is called the American tree sparrow. And they are one tough bird. They once again come from the northern landscapes, and they come down in here in winter in Iowa. You'll see them in brushy areas and in fields along the edges of the oak savanna. And they have a unstreaked breast, but they have one central spot in the breast. So that's a one way to identify them, plus the red cap on them. So actually have pretty musical chirps or sounds. So when you hear them feeding, and they can be out in the extremest weather, they're out feeding in these brushy fields on seeds, and you'll hear this musical notes, and they're just a really beautiful small sized bird, and absolutely really don't need to be called tree sparrows. It's a misnamed bird. They actually prefer open lands and feeding on the ground. So but they got the name American tree sparrow because the European settlers sort of looked like a European tree sparrow from back home. So once again, a misnamed bird. So some animals, as I mentioned, stay put and stay active. So they really don't migrate. They have adaptations that help them survive the extremes of winter and stay around and stay active. And some of the things that bison do, as you probably all know, is they grow a really thick layer of fur. They have 2 layers, and they also actually, their skin thickens, and they also get a layer of fat. So you can see this big boy is looking pretty good going into the winter. They are said to be so well insulated from all these adaptations that they have that the snow will not even melt on their backs from the heat from their body. So very well insulated bison. Another thing about them is when it's windy in extreme conditions, they will actually face into the wind. So they have all that heavy fur, especially around their head and on their legs, and they face into the wind, and that wind will, and that fur will support and insulate them. So that's another one of their strategies. And if you notice, this picture really emphasizes the hump on their back. And the reason why they have that hump is actually it's muscle connected to their vertebrae and their bones, and that actually enables that very large head to move and swing through snow so they can actually forage, if you can think about it as a snow plow. So though that hump is actually a bunch of muscles supporting that head so that they can actually dig through the snow, and they can actually smell pretty well, and they can smell vegetation 3 feet under the snow. So very well adapted quite a few ways to surviving the extremes of winter. I thought this was a really neat picture. This is just the bison herd just taking a little break, and what they do is actually they slow their metabolism slows during the winter, so they actually eat less, they forage less, so the metabolism slows. But what happens is the forage is not as high in nutrition as during the other times of the year. So the forage, the food that they're eating, the grasses will stay in their gut for a longer period of time, so that it can absorb more of the nutritional value out of that not so nutritional food. So another aspect of bison survival is having that, slowing down their metabolism to deal with the less nutrition food and the lack of food as well. And one thing that bison really like, as much as I like ice cream, they seem to like salt. So this is a picture of the bison surrounding a vehicle because they know the vehicles, they have learned that salt is on the vehicles from the road. So often in the wintertime, this is a scene that you'll see on the wildlife drive. Sometimes people get a little frightened because they have all these big animals around their vehicles, but they won't hurt the vehicle or the people as long as they don't get out. And we do provide the bison with salt and mineral blocks, but they just really enjoy getting as much salt as they can. And this is a learned behavior, but kind of entertaining when you do see it in person. I thought this was a striking photo. Eileen is one of the a regular photographer that comes out to the refuge, and she's willing to share her photos with us. So I thought this was spectacular. And this is one of the reasons why I like winter. It's just look at the beauty in the hoarfrost or the frost along the plants, and then the extreme coloration between the browns and the whites of the snow and the frost. So, and one of the reasons why I like winter is it can be just plain out just beautiful. And elk, just like bison, they get a really heavy coat. They have 2 layers. They have that inner dense fur that then has overlay of guard hairs, and that's very insulating. They can actually stand the hairs up, those guard hairs up on them, on their coat, and that helps to trap the air as well to insulate them. And what they do is they actually can forage on grass, but they also can browse. Since they are taller, they can browse on shrubs and trees, so they can get that nutrition as well. So that's an upside for them, as opposed to deer, which will struggle with, because they're not as tall, to get the shrub and the tree layer. So birds have to contend. Some of them migrate, as we mentioned, but some stick around, like the ringneck pheasant. So the ringneck pheasant is another animal that is well adapted, but really what's key for them is having the right habitat. So as long as they have food and a habitat where they can get out of the extremes of winter, they can survive. They have to eat, of course, and get a fat layer and have a food source during the winter, but it's really key. They can't burrow into the snow and take shelter in the snow. What they have to do is find shelter, so those extremes of winter, they can protect themselves. Their feathers, of course, are insulating. They have the fat layer, but they do have to have that protective shelter in place for them in order for them to survive winter conditions. And then, of course, there's lots of animals that burrow. So this is, I think, what I think is a badger burrow. And there's animals like badgers and raccoons and opossums, and they'll take shelter in tree cavities or in burrows over the winter. And they may stay active. They're active, but they don't stay. If there's really bad weather, extreme conditions, they're going to stay, and they're just going to stay insulated in a tree cavity, in a burrow, until those conditions pass, and then they can go back out and forage for food again. And just the same thing as a possum will line its shelter, its nest with leaf material to insulate itself. Unfortunately for these animals, they do have exposed skin on their ears and on their tails, so it's subjected to frostbite. So a lot of times, if you'll see a possum, you'll see part of its tail might be missing because of that. And then we have our lovely squirrels, fox squirrels, and some other types of squirrels. They will, of course, stash food and use that for the wintertime. During extreme conditions, they just won't come out. When the weather's permitting, they'll go out and forage for food or looking to their cache for getting their nuts. Or they also will, in a nest cavity or a tree cavity, they'll all shelter together, and several of them will huddle together to keep warm. So another type of strategy for beating the cold weather. And then our beautiful cardinal. Who doesn't love a cardinal against the snow? I mean, that's just a stunning sight to see. This is an animal that stays here year round. It doesn't migrate. It just has adapted. So fluffing up its feathers, just like we put on a winter coat, insulates it. They have to maintain getting food. They will get out of the extremes. They'll seek shelter in evergreen trees or brush piles, so they're not subjected to the wind. So just another animal that's adds stunning beauty to the winter landscape, that's just really tough and able to get through. And even turkeys. Turkeys are, once again, animals that don't migrate. They stick around. They'll roost in trees. They feed on whatever plant material they can find, acorns and other things that they can find. And they just build up that fat layer. And then they, once again, just have to keep sheltered and have a good fat resource to be able to get through the wintertime. And then we have our true hibernators. As people think bears are true hibernators, and they're actually not, because they don't have the 3 conditions that define a true hibernator. So a ground squirrel, like this 13-line ground squirrel, is actually a true hibernator, meaning that when it goes into hibernation, which starts in the fall, in September, its physiology really changes. So it curls up in a ball, it stays in its burrow, and its temperature, breathing rate, and heart rate will actually decrease pretty drastically. And so they'll stay in that condition for the winter, and then they won't reemerge until spring. So that is an example of a true hibernator. And not just some good news for those folks that were putting in the chat, they're looking forward to spring. Not too far in the near future, not too far off, we're going to have our first spring migrants coming back. So this is a photo of a flock of male red-winged blackbirds, and actually a pretty big flock. And these birds, the males of red-winged blackbirds, there will still be some around in Iowa, but the large numbers will start to come back in February. So not too far off from this time period, we're going to start seeing really good signs of spring. So that'll give us some really, some people that are looking for a spring, some really good hope that warm weather is not too far off. And I just thought this was an awesome photo. This was taken by one of our staff members, Tenley Turner, and just shows you the toughness and endurance that some animals have to get through. So a young male bison just out there in the extremes of cold and just getting through it and enduring. So just want to thank you. Thanks for participating tonight, and for helping me through with the glitches with the PowerPoint. I really appreciate it. And I would love to take anybody's questions or comments. If anybody has any, I think there might be a question in the chat. Bear with me while I get out of this.
Raising livestock, the key to survival in the winter is water and grass. You fill the bellies full of grass and you give them water, they'll last all the time.
Did you raise livestock?
Yes,
Okay, yep. It's just,
in Montana, and it gets really cold up there, but they will flock together, and they have no problem at all. They're like buffalo.
yeah, it's amazing. Like I said, these animals don't get reprieve. They're in it. And they don't get a reprieve like we do, get to have a cup of hot chocolate and sit by the fireplace. They're out in it and have to endure. So it's amazing what they can get through. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Anybody else, any comments or thoughts or questions? And it doesn't have to be about the PowerPoint today. It could just be thoughts on the refuge, or any questions about what we talked about.
Someone has a question in the chat.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Sandy and Fred, thank you. I appreciate that. And the question is, where do bison get their water if the creek freezes? So what I've read, and Karen, you can help me with this, what I read that they can actually open it up a bit, but by, breaking through the ice. But Karen, can you add more to that if you have some information?
Yeah, if there's snow, they can get moisture from that. But it actually usually runs because there's drain tiles that feed into that creek. So since they're below ground, there's usually some flowing water. So it doesn't freeze all the way through. It might freeze on the top, but they just step on it and break it open.
So, I mean, if they're in an extreme place like Yellowstone, where, there's probably everything's frozen up, they could get their water source from the snow.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Excellent question, Sandy and Fred. Anybody else? Any other questions? Well, I just want to thank everybody again for being here tonight. I cannot stress how important each and every one of you are to this refuge. Our friends, members, I noticed that there's even folks from outside of Iowa that are still supporting this refuge. So even though you don't live here in Iowa, you're still supporting us. It means a lot. The more we educate people about the prairie ecosystem and the wildlife and how important it is for both people and wildlife, it's getting to be a bigger passion in pushing into different communities, and people are learning more about it. So it really takes all of us to do that. But we couldn't do it without the volunteers, and we couldn't do it without our friends, members. So thank you very much for joining us. We will have our next meeting will be the second Thursday of March, which I don't have the date offhand, but I'll send out an invitation. In the meanwhile, if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Karen or the friends members. And thank you, Aiden, for being here with us tonight and introducing yourselves. I feel very grateful to have Aiden with us. And I hope to see you guys, and we'll be opening, the refuge is open. We still are doing volunteer projects. So please come out and join us and participate where you feel comfortable. And yeah, the photos, thank you, Susan. The photos are awesome. I just am astounded by some of these photographers, the beautiful photos, including Jones. So have a good night, everybody. I look forward to seeing you at the refuge and at our next meeting.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks,
Thanks,
Helen,
Nancy.
for being on. Helen and Dennis, everybody.
Everybody has good presentation.
Hi, guys. And Howie. I missed Howie.
He's out in California.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a long time volunteer. And Dennis, good to see you.
Thanks, Dennis, for all the good questions
Yeah.
and comments.
Yeah. All right. Do I have to do something, Mark?
Did I get my back with my facts straight, Karen? For the
think
most
so.
part?
I learned some stuff too.
Well, hopefully it's right.
Joan, when you shut down your Zoom window, you're going to get a message that it's going to take a while to
Angela in
transfer-
Virginia, I didn't get to
transform
say
into
hello.
something.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
So just let it do that. And then I sent you in the chat my access to my Dropbox account.
Okay,
Because the friend's account is too small, is full.
yeah, I didn't. I'm having trouble getting into that. So,
Okay.
because I tried to get to your message and I couldn't. So,
Okay, well, I'll just drop to you in an email my username and password in
Okay.
Dropbox, and just put the file up there. Let me know what the file name is, and I'll go in there and edit it and post it up on YouTube.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks,
Oh.
Nancy. That was good. Good to see.
I won't start converting until we're completely off the meeting. So.
Oh, I should ask Karen. I forgot this. Why are the creek? We drove through the refuge the last couple of days, with the creeks are melting. Why are they such an odd color? Is that just the foliage that they're yellowish brown? They look really bad. And that's what we didn't know if that's just the decaying plants. And so
Probably. Yeah, I don't know.
it's really odd. It's an odd. We noticed.
Yeah, probably like from the tannins in the leaves or something.
Yeah, it's very obvious right now, it seemed like. So I've just never noticed that before.
Yeah.
It looked kind of weird. So. all
Thank
right.
you, Karen, for getting me out of that snafu. It's like, you know, and that happened, and there's really no way to practice because you can't practice unless you're on the Zoom. I guess next time I'll get on early and practice it to make sure it's
Yeah,
functioning right.
open up Zoom account all by yourself and practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It just, because you have all these buttons and then you're trying to entertain the audience and you're trying to figure out the buttons, so.
Yeah, it was Rachel that helped me last time when I was
Rachel Hainfield?
Hainfield, yeah, when I
Oh,
was doing
okay.
a presentation and she she helped me through that. So
Yeah, yeah.
but I couldn't remember it until I saw your screen, and then it was like, oh, that's the thing.
And then you can't see what the audience is seeing because you don't know what they're looking at. So Joan, thank you, because I would have went
Yeah.
on and on without.
Yeah, I didn't know what you
Thinking
were
that-
talking about, saying that was a photo contest winner. I was going, that landscape picture, really?
That's really funny. And thanks, Karen. I really appreciate you being on.
Okay. Cool.
See you guys later.
Anyway,
Okay.
now I got to go out to my car and hear the coyotes.
Yeah.
All right. Good night.
All right.
Have a good
Bye,
one. Thank
everybody.
you.
Yep.
Bye.
We'll see ya.
Thanks, Joan. Thanks for
Yep.
offering to do March.
Yep. We'll give this a shot. See if it works. Oh,
Sounds good. I'll see you soon.
okay. Yep. We'll see ya. Thanks.
All right, bye.
Bye.